Okay, now start with the SQL injection. We are at 6.5.
Now, next is SQL injection. So, SQL injection is a web security vulnerability that allows an attacker to interfere with the queries that an application makes to its database. So, whenever you develop a software application, there there must in a web application you might be using a database, any database like suppose SQL, MySQL database, PostgreSQL, or like MongoDB. So any database. So basically, database is a heart of any web application which you develop. So SQL injection attack mostly happens wherein a database is attached to a software system. It generally allows an attacker to view the data that they are not normally able to retrieve. This might include data belonging to other users or any other data that the application itself is able to access. In many cases, an attacker can modify or delete this data, causing persistent changes to the application's content or behavior. So, suppose you have a form and uh, wherein you provide your user ID and it will get you the details which you are intended to view on the UI. But what attackers can do is they can add some scripts in the space provided in the forms, and they can retrieve the data from the database on the UI. So there are wide variety of SQL injection vulnerabilities, attacks and techniques which arise in different situations. Some common SQL injection example includes retrieving hidden data which you cannot modify an SQL query to return additional results. So what SQL queries are basically used to get some values from the database, and these data from the database which is written by these SQL queries are then presented on the UI. So an SQL injection attack can retrieve the data which is, so basically what they can do is they can create an SQL query in such a way or in such a manner that they can take all the data or most of the data from the database and dump it on the UI. So subverting application logic, wherein you can change a query to interfere with the application's logic. Union attacks, where you can retrieve data from different database tables. Examine the database, where you can extract information about the version and structure of database. Blind SQL injection, where the result of a query you can control and are not written in the application responses. So, how to prevent this SQL injection? Most instances of SQL injection can be prevented by using parameterized queries, also known as prepared statements. So, if you are aware about the Java, so there are parameterized queries or the prepared statements which we can use in the code, which can prevent these SQL injections instead of a string concatenation with the queries. So basically, if you give a string query and execute it on the database, so there are more possibilities of SQL injection attack that can take place. So to minimize this, you can use the parameterized queries. So in this diagram you can see, so there is one form, and basically the developer has developed this form using some string statements. Suppose select name description from product, where category gifts, union select username password from user. So this query selects the name and description, so gives the description and the name to the user. But during coding, what a coder has done is like he has used this as a string, and when a hacker saw this, what he does is he replaces this query with a different query, wherein he can retrieve all the passwords and all the usernames that are stored in the database and can display it on his system. So how it is done is not covered in this, but like if you are very much interested in system security or want to know like how these attacks are performed and what all preventive measures you can go or you can take care of during development of any application, you can refer one site which is OWASP. So you can just Google it, OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities, and you will get a proper list of these vulnerabilities, and you can try each one of them. So that is really amazing, and it will increase your knowledge or the practical knowledge on how these attackers perform these attacks, and what care should be taken in the background to prevent these attacks or your application to get tampered by an attacker. So you can just visit that website wherein you can see different OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities.